Welcome back for another exciting story here on Everybody Has a Story. Today I get to interview my beautiful wife, Brynn. Hi, Brynn.
Hi.
I'm glad that we get to share your story. This is going to be fun. So, it's going to be her whole life story, so buckle up, get some popcorn. I don't expect it to go more than an hour, but we'll see what happens. All right. Hi, honey.
Hi.
What's your name?
Brynn.
Hi, Brynn.
Hi.
I love you. So, I wanted to start off with what was your childhood and teenage years like?
I mean, there's a lot that, my childhood, there's a lot that I feel like I don't remember. I know that from my parents, my dad was in the Navy. I was born in San Diego, and so was my brother. And just know, obviously what my mom told me, showed that I liked spicy eggs as a baby. Well, must have been a lot of, and that we went to Tijuana a lot. My parents like to walk around down there, I guess. And that we moved from there to Jacksonville, Florida. I want to say my mom told me when I was like 2 or 3.
Oh, okay. What do you remember about home life as a kid?
I really don't remember life with my mom and dad together. I think they got, well, I remember a little bit. I remember that they separated, and there was a short period of time where my mom was living somewhere else. Because I remember going over there with my brother, and it being a different trailer than the trailer that we lived in Jacksonville, Florida. But it's just a couple memories, just the fact of going over there. And then I remember coming home one day and the neighbor was there, and instead of my mom, and they said that I don't really remember what they said, honestly. I just remember them being there. It's big chunks of time. I just remember coming home, my mom wasn't there, it was my neighbor and my little sister, which my mom had, that she wasn't there. And then I remember my dad meeting my stepmom, and then her and her 3 kids moving in. And I just remembered telling my stepmom that I didn't like her, and I hated her, and punching her.
Oh, wow. Was there faith in the house?
No, there was a bus that went around that would pick kids up, and they would let us go to I don't know, it was Sunday school. I remember they would always give us prizes on the bus on the way home. But I don't remember ever thinking anything of it other than just it was fun to go and get stuff.
Now, so you grew up in a household without faith.
Mm-hmm.
What was your, how did you approach freedom? What did you do with your time when you were old enough to manage that yourself?
We just played outside a lot. But, we did bad stuff. We had this, there's these trees in Florida I think they're called kumquats. These little, things, and we would, hide behind bushes and throw them at cars. or we would, I had 4 brothers, so we would take little lizards and, hold them at the edge of the road and, time it so that when we let them go, they would get smushed by cars.
So you valued life.
Yeah.
Okay, how about what were your teenage years like and into your 20s?
So going into my teenage years, like I remember there was a period of time, I really don't remember how long, where we didn't really, I don't remember like talk to my mom, but then at some point my mom and dad like reconnected, and like we started coming up here for the summer. So like up to Michigan. So like as soon as we would get out of school in the summer, we would come up here and be up here with my mom and hang out for the summer. And she would, like do stuff with us, and then we would go back to my dad's. And my dad was kind of strict, because he was in the military, and my stepmom was like Southern, and she was very kind of strict too from being Southern, like yes ma'am, no ma'am, and all that stuff. And she always like would make me come inside because to like try to teach me how to cook and things like that. She's like, oh, you have to know how to cook, you gotta, she was old fashioned. And I would be mad because my brothers would be allowed to stay playing outside, and I would have to come inside and help cook dinner. I didn't think that was fair. And then, once we reconnected with my mom and started coming up here to visit, I really like, me and my brother started talking like how we wanted to live, like would rather be living with my mom. And so we told my dad, and I think it was a couple of years. I remember coming up here a few summers, but when I came up here to live in 1996, so I was 13. And then my dad said, even though it like broke his heart that he wanted us to be happy. So he just, he let us come up here. And then when we got up here, it was great, like being with my mom, but, it was also hard just because like she's a single parent with 3 kids. And I think even with like, child support, like from my dad, obviously like she had to work a couple jobs. So I was basically like, like the babysitter, and, I would be the, taking care of my brother and my little sister. And, yeah.
Are you the oldest?
Yeah, I'm the oldest.
So you basically raised your brother and sister, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but I mean, my mom did. It was just like, I was like, I had to babysit when she wasn't around, because that was just it. But we had a lot of cousins and stuff around, so we would hang out with our cousins and stuff on the weekends too.
Was family a priority?
I would say, yeah, like my mom's family, like a lot of, I spent a lot of time with cousins and aunts and uncles and things like that.
Nice. When did you realize that your life was unmanageable? Was there a point where you were like, the choices that I've been making have not been working out very well?
I mean, that wasn't until like way far, way down in the future. So like, I don't know, we were home alone a lot. So like we pretty much did whatever, got introduced like at, that age to like marijuana, and, tried that with like cousins and friends, like my friend my brother had. And, that was really it. But then, and stealing, like I remember like we would go to like Myers and places and steal like CDs or makeup or clothes. Like we, just the people we were around did it. So we just did it, and they showed us how to do it. And then we just did that. Me and my brother kind of always were like together because we were similar age. I don't think I started drinking maybe in like probably in high school, like probably 9th grade. And I'm trying to think, throughout high school, it was like once you start drinking and smoking, other things, it is like a gateway, because it's just like other stuff comes up, and at first it's kind of scary, but then you're just like, well, let's try it and see. But like I always did well in school, but just, like afternoons and weekends and stuff, I would just, try different things. I think when I was a senior in high school, we tried, started getting into more, hanging out with older people. And then that's when like some of the other drugs came into play, like coke and mushrooms and that type of stuff. But it wasn't until like towards the end of my senior year that like me and all my cousins, like somebody got ecstasy and we were like all gonna try it together for like the first time. And then that opened up like the rave scene because like that's where they do that. And then I had found out through talking to family that people that my family knew owned a club in Hamtramck called Motor. And even though I wasn't 18, I was like, well, if it's our family, like, so me and my friends just like went up there one night and we're like, talked to the bouncer and said like who we were and who our family was. And he's like, oh yeah. And took us to the door and, the person that knew our family was, at the door and they let us all in and we're like, what? They're like, oh, you're 18? We're like, yeah. So we just waltzed right in there. And then, like they didn't even make us pay. So like other people are paying $20, $30 to get in. And like me and my friends, they would let us in for free. So, and then we'd get VIP. So we were just sitting back there hanging out. And then, when you're hanging out, and at the time, I'm pretty sure it was like one of the biggest clubs like in Detroit for like electronic music. It was pretty, and so they had these big world-renowned DJs there, and we were sitting in VIP. So the people that hang out in VIP are usually like high roll, the high roller drugs. So like all the drugs are like flowing freely, back there in the VIP booth. And when we were at Motor every weekend, the other people that also hang out every weekend are people there to make money and sell drugs. So that, and they're also like in VIP. So then I started hanging out with like going like home to hang out like after hours and stuff and hanging out with these other people who were there like selling. And then that kind of rolled into going to raves with those people, like underground parties and things. And, having that connection of like the people who were there, that, I don't know, like I grew up, I didn't have a lot of money. So like these people were like, they made it seem like just a natural thing, honestly, like to just hang out and like trade money for whatever you had with your friends. Like, I didn't really, I guess too, because I was already like high when I got there, you don't think of like the consequences, like, that part of your brain gets shut down. So it's just you're having fun and doing stuff. Like you don't even think, I never even thought of like farther down the road of like any of the consequences. It was just like, just one thing led to another. And then right after high school, I had gotten scholarships, like basically a full ride to University of Michigan, Dearborn, signed up for sorority, signed up for all these classes. But then the job that I was working at the time, I got my finger like pinched in this machine and it like had to get stitches and all this stuff. And I was off work because I couldn't do anything with my hand and I needed my hands for this job. So I was off work for like, I think 6 to 8 weeks. And that was when I got really deep because I was getting money, but then I didn't have to work. I had all this free time. And that's when I really started going to all these parties and stuff. And I was like, getting stuff fronted to me and then selling it at parties and like making all this money. And that was like an addiction in itself, like coming from not having a lot of money growing up. I was just like, oh, that was so much fun, So then I just walked away from like everything, U of M Dearborn, my scholarships, the sorority. I just left and just started. There was like a website called bluelight.nu. It was like all these underground, like all these raves and stuff. You could go on and see like where all the parties were.
What? When I went to raves, there was no websites.
Oh, well, there was at this time, but it had listed all these parties. So we would, go to all these parties and like, and I think at this point, I was probably kicked out of my mom's. I got kicked out and then moved back in, kicked out. It was one of the times I got kicked out of my mom. So I was living with my cousin. And then I told them that I was landscaping for hotels. Like, because I had a landscaping job at some point. Because, like, they're like, you're not working your other job. Like, where you get all this money. So I just told them that's what I was doing. That's why I would travel. Like, because we would travel and go to, like, all these parties and make all this money and then come back. And I was like, I got to think of something and, tell them. So I was like, oh, yeah, I'm landscaping under the table for hotels and things. So we travel. But, like, I had a whole group of friends. Like, we didn't want to get caught. And I was, like, a smart drug dealer. I was just like, I don't want to, because I knew a couple people who got caught with considerable amount of, what we were dealing with and did, got multiple years, like, in prison. And like it crossed my mind. So like we had like a crew of people that we would go into raves with, and like, like nobody had everything on them at once. Like nobody had all the money, nobody had all the pills, and we had all, it was like, and then we would have one person with like nothing on them go around and talk to people and say like, hey, do you know anybody that can get any? And then they'd say no. And then they'd be like, well, and they, have the conversation like, well, if you find somebody, let me know, because I'm looking too. Because everybody was always looking for ecstasy at these raves. That's just what you were there for.
I know.
So then, that person would come back to who had it and say, hey, I found somebody. I'll go back, they're looking for this many, like go back and just do that small interaction and then have the main people that had all the money or all the pills, like never talk to anybody so that they wouldn't know. Like we had our own whole little thing. So this went on for a few years. And then I had like a scare with like the law, because I was at a friend's house. There was a party. That friend got into a fight with his mom. He got mad. He was all on all kinds of stuff probably. And he got mad and he had planted these bushes for his mom. And then he went out front with like a little hatchet and was like chopping up these bushes that he planted for her, because he was mad at her from whatever fight they had gotten into. And he accidentally hit the gas main. So then this starts leaking gas. And then his mom's like, you're going to blow the house up. Like, what did you do? Calls the police. And then everybody that's in the basement is like, we got to get out of here. So we all take off. I'm in Taylor, like by my mom's house over here by Allen Park High School. I get over by like where the dollar show used to be in Allen Park. And there's like, boop, boop. Like I had a white station wagon that I had limo tinted all the windows. So it stand out like a sore thumb. But they, whoever, his mom had said everybody, I don't know if she said everybody was there or whatever, ended up dropping it because I really didn't have anything to do with it. But I got put in jail for the night. And then when I got pulled over, I had almost 100 of these like pills of ecstasy called Green Mercedes. Sticks in my mind, and they're in a mini M&M's container. And my car was like absolutely trashed. But I didn't carry like a purse, but I always used to like stick my wallet and stuff under the front seat. So I had my phone, everything I had stuck in this little spot. And I had just stuck everything under the front seat and then like grabbed my wallet and then, got arrested and was sitting in Taylor jail. And I was like, watching them. They had booked me and everything. And then they brought my phone in, which was also under the front seat. And I was like, that was the first time I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to go to prison. Like I watched them set my phone. I'm like, they definitely found those pills because they were in this mini M&M's container. I'm like, there's no way they didn't find them. So I'm just like, great. And then they put me in a cell and I sat there all night. And then like, I remember that time being like, if there is a God, like I don't want to go to prison. Like, oh my gosh. Like, I was like so scared for like, I think I was in there for like, I don't know, 8 hours or something. And they finally just came in and just let me out. And I was like, okay, and then told me to follow back up or with them or whatever. But then I'm like calling around everyone, like, I need to get my car to impound. Like, you know, if you pay to get my car to impound, like, I'll give you some or whatever if they're in there. And they were in there. So then I made that exchange. But then I was like really paranoid, like, oh my gosh, they found them and they're watching me, you know. And then, but I did the craziest things. Like, you know, one time I had to go pick some of those up, and I'm like, standing on the corner, and they wanted to make sure I wasn't wearing a wire. So I had to go stand on the corner of this gas station, and they're like, I'm going to drive by in, you know, a couple minutes. I need you to lift your shirt up. So I'm standing on the corner, holding my shirt up, and then, you know, they call me back and they're like, you're good. You know, they just want to make sure I wasn't wearing a wire, but like all the crazy things that I did, like, you know, to get this stuff. And then, you know, just, yeah. So people go to prison, people die, like a lot of friends, like just sadness and all this stuff. And then that takes me like into my 20s. And then that event really scared me though. And I was just like, what am I doing? You know, what am I doing with my life? Like, and I think at that time, maybe I was dating my oldest daughter's father. And we met like out at at parties or whatever through mutual friends. And then I was just kind of like, you know, I need to get my life together. You know, maybe I'll like, you know, sign back up for school. You know, there was a lot of periods of time where I didn't talk to my mom. I would like get mad at her, would argue. You know, she had issues with alcohol. Praise the Lord, she does not anymore. But at those periods of time she did. So, you know, I wasn't talking to her, but I talked to her at that time, and I was like, I think I'm going to try to go back to school. You know, like, just watching people go to prison, I was like, is this really what I want with my life? Like, what am I doing? And my mom's like, oh, you should go to school for like, let me rewind. I'd gotten a job at Walgreens because someone's like, oh, Walgreens will hire you. So I had gotten a job at Walgreens, and I always did a good job where I was at. And they were like, hey, do you want to work in the you seem pretty smart. Like, you want to work in the pharmacy? Like, they'll pay for your training, you know? And so while I was still out doing all that stuff, I got a job in this pharmacy. And, you know, I hope it's the statute of limitations passed, like, you know, or I could say this publicly, but I used to steal, like, I tried to quit doing like all the street drugs for a while, but then I like switched over to like some prescription pills, you know, like, oh, at least they're legal. You know, and for a time period when I was working at Walgreens, I used to wear my like Walgreens vest with my name tag to like raves, and I would be like, I'm a pharmacist by day, street pharmacist by night. You know, like I would joke around at like the raves and have like my raver gear with like my Walgreens vest, but like that was, you know, that was just funny, like a joke. But I stole like from the one pharmacy I worked, it was the inpatient one because it was easier. The Walgreens one's really small, but the inpatient one, there was like stuff that wasn't even being monitored, and I took advantage of that. Like, that would have put me in prison too. You know, like, yeah, just so many reckless, like, crazy things. I drove on multiple different stuff. I mean, there were nights where, like, as I did more and more drugs, I got more brave, and then like wanted to try different things and like see what it felt like, you know. So like, I'm pretty sure I did everything but heroin and crack. So
yeah. You said your oldest daughter's father. Mm-hmm. Did having a child change your life?
It did initially, like, so that like him and I were like, oh, we're gonna go, you know, we started going to NA together, and then I started going to school, you know, and tried to like get situated, but then, so yeah, that happened. And then when she was like 4 months old, I found out he was using again. His drug of choice was heroin. So, you know, I just noticed like in the bank account things like, what are you spending this you know, all this money on? And then I had known that he had used when he was like 18 or something, but I was like naive. I never met a heroin addict, I was very naive to like what that addiction entailed. So meeting someone when they're clean and them not doing anything. Like now I know like you have to stay like doing something for your recovery. You can't just like get clean and be like, I'm good and go back to your normal life. Like you have to do something to like work on your recovery process. Like, and he wasn't like when I met him. So he was just like, I just don't do that anymore, but this stuff's okay. That's not how it goes. Like you have to get off everything. So yeah, when my daughter was like 4 months old, he started using again. And I was like, bro, seriously? Like we have a baby. We can't, like we have to do right. And so I left, moved in with my mom, saved up some money, got my own place. But then when I got my own place, it was very overwhelming. And I started kind of like drifting, like wanting to hang out with friends, wanting to do stuff. And so I started like going out again, you know, to the raves and stuff, but, you know, like have somebody watch Bella for the weekend. But then, you know, I started to kind of drift where it was like, I would drive over somewhere and just smoke weed or just drink a little bit or whatever. And then drive home. Probably not okay. Definitely not okay. But then I went with some friends up to Traverse City. This was like a big turning point. And got arrested on the way up there. Oh, no, sorry. Got pulled over on the way up there. Drinking 4 Locos, smoking a blunt, doing like 90 miles an hour on 75. Get pulled over. Can't even find my like the proof of insurance or anything in my car. Found my driver's license, but I couldn't find my proof of insurance. And I was like shaking. The cop just gave me a speeding ticket. I was like, whoa, you know. So went up to Traverse City, and then this art gallery or wherever they were having the show, there's no alcohol, so didn't drink the entire time. Just smoked. And then went to somebody's house afterwards, smoked some more. Left that house to go back to where we were staying for the night, get pulled over. Ran me, you know, did the breathalyzer, nothing. Ran me through the sobriety test, nothing. And he was like, what if I take you to the hospital and draw your blood? I'm like, where are you going to find marijuana? And and I had a little glass pipe in the car. So down here in Taylor, Michigan, where I'm from, if you're honest with the cops, I've known a lot of people to get away. You don't lie. You're honest. Like if I pass the sobriety, I'm like, I'll just tell them, you know, be honest. Well, that didn't work up in Traverse City. So I gave him the little pipe, and then he's like, all right, we're going to arrest you. We're going to take you to the hospital. We're going to draw your blood and see what we got going on. And they told me, you know, so I spent that night in jail there too. And they let me out the next day, went and found my car. And then that was like April 6th of 2011. And yeah, that was like a big wake-up call, because it was like, you know, here I am like telling her dad he's got to get his stuff together. And like at that point he wasn't. He was out using. And like here I am starting to slip, get into trouble. It's like one of us has to be, you know, the one that's doing the right thing for this child, you know. So shortly after that, well, towards the end of the month, there was like a big 420 party at like, you know, friends of ours. And I went with my friend to this party. I was like, it's my last hurrah, because I had appointments to go to Traverse City, like probably going to end up on probation, whatever. I had my landlord like write me this fake letter saying I was being evicted so that I could pull money out of my 401k, because I had been working at the hospital for a few years so I could pay this lawyer. Because at this point, I'm like a registered x-ray tech, and I'm like, great, I'm going to lose my job. You know, like it's like ruining my life. Like, you know, it was like, life is unmanageable at that point. Like, I'm just going to ruin everything that I worked so hard for, and then leave my daughter with nobody. So this 420 party is going to be like my last hurrah. And, you know, that was the first time I met you.
Hi.
I met my husband. But like we really didn't talk too much.
I thought you were Lizard's girl, so I didn't even look twice.
Yeah.
I always thought, I was like, dude, why does Lizard always get like the hottest girls? Oh, well. Because you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And when you walked in that party, I remember that moment like it was yesterday. And just being like, oh, Lizard, dude, that guy's so cool.
Yeah. So yeah,
I remember. So that was around the time when I was like in my room in the dark, going, God, look how good at managing my life I'm not. Can you take over? Did you have a similar moment?
yeah, sitting in jail for the second time. I was just like, what am I doing with my life? Now it's not my life. It's like this little baby. And it was funny, like the Bella's grandma on her dad's side, she always like, she goes to church and she's like, you need to find a church and take Bella. I'm like, yeah, maybe she needs it. Probably be a good thing for a child. And then the next time, I met Jeff, like we were going to go out to another rave show, like downtown Detroit. And like, remember where everybody had this acid had been away for a long time. It was like kind of coming back. And everybody was like wanting to like, oh, like we're going to take this acid and go to this party. And then him and I like connected and, figured out that, I was dating Lizard. And so we ended up talking like all night, or we got along when we went to the party, and we were like, I don't want to take that. Cause like when you take acid, you're just like going to La La Land. It was like kind of like reality. I don't want to leave reality. So we just ended up like hanging out all night and then getting back to the house and like just sitting on like the computer and like playing music. Like, oh, you ever heard of this song? Like one of those things you do to like, I don't know, get to know somebody, I guess. But like pretty much just like staying up all night. And then I remember him asking me, like, I know this might seem like a strange thing to ask or whatever, but like, would you be interested in like going to church? Like he's like saying his brother was going to come pick him up in the morning. And I was like, that's so funny. Like my daughter's like grandma was like telling me I need to take my daughter to church. And I was like, well, I got to pick my daughter up if it's like, cool that I take her. And they're like, oh yeah. He's like, yeah. So I ended up getting my daughter back from her grandma and then like going to their church, like in the same clothes that I had went out to the club the night before, probably smelling like cigarettes and beer or whatever, like I just remember like thinking how funny it was. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like going to church in the clothes that I went to the club last night and smell like cigarettes, but you would not have known that from like the way that the people at his parents' church, they all like treated me and my daughter very nicely. And then his family always goes to like someone's house after church. And like, I took my daughter and everybody just was like super nice to me. My daughter like treated us like we were already part of their family. They're all like playing with my daughter, picking her up. Like, and I just thought like, oh my gosh, like these people are so nice, But that, all that night, whatever, like, me and him, like, we're just like inseparable after that. Like I would like be texting him and like calling him on my lunch break or like on my way home. Like we're just like nonstop, like talking to each other. And then, he obviously then started like, I was like, he came over to my house and like staying with like, me and Bella staying the night. And then I don't know, it was what, like maybe a couple weeks. We were just like looking at each other like, I would totally marry you. Like, you're the best.
Yeah, we met initially on April 20th.
Mm-hmm.
And we got married on the 1st of June.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of time between those days.
No, like we talked about it like almost immediately. And then, you did have like the conviction of like growing up, and I remember you were just like, if we're going to do this, like, can't just be living in sin. Like this is living in sin. So I'm going to either go back to my house and we'll do whatever, or, we have to start thinking about that. And I was just like, okay. Like I don't even know what that meant, but like whatever, But like I remember Memorial Day weekend, we were just like, let's just get married this week, like, and we were like looking at Michigan laws and all the stuff. And we're like, oh, I heard you can just go to Toledo court and like get married that day. And so we were like, all right, we'll just go. Well, they're not open on Monday because it's Memorial Day. So on Tuesday, we'll talk to people. Wednesday, we'll go. So we like talked to his mom. And then so we went, like, and then there's all this other stuff. Like, there's all this drama that happened, but like God helped it happen. Cause like, I think we just went down there to get married, but then I had married someone before, not for love, like a financial benefit, helping out a friend. Can't really say much on that because I don't know if I could. I don't know what the statute of limitations on that is either. Ask me in person. But yeah, all kinds of scamming going on.
Sure. That just made our wedding day a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
That's true.
But thankfully we had someone that could help us get the divorce papers.
So what was marriage like for you initially?
I mean, initially it was great, like, because I loved, like me and you were just like we just loved each other. Like, I want to be married to you. So for I'd say like first couple months, yeah, like, and then I found out that I was pregnant with Danger, and then I didn't have any issues with church or whatever. It was peaceful. But then I think when I got pregnant with our son, that's when you started to like take it very seriously. Like, not just like Sunday, like go on Wednesday and like reading the Bible every day, like, just doing everything. Oh, I do want to back up for a second though, because there was like all this weird, like spiritual kind of stuff that was like happening like before I met you too. And I think the reason that God brought you into my life is because like I had a friend that committed suicide. That was very traumatic. That starts making you think. And she posted like she had relapsed, but she had posted like the day before she died, like these verses about like Matthew, like from the Bible. And like, I think, it was like one of my best friends. So like, when one of your best friends commits suicide and the day before they post like a Bible verse, you're like, what? Well, she read the Bible, but there was all these like, and then that community that like, I met him in the community of like all these, like spiritual people, burners and people that go like Burning Man, like that whole community, a lot of spiritual people, but not, and I had never like, I just never even thought of it. Like I had a friend when I was younger that I went to like her church sometimes for youth group type stuff, but it was just for fun. Like I never had any moments where I was like, I didn't even think about, is this real or is this not? I just went for the fun things that we were doing. Never even thought about it. Never had any moments where I was like, oh, nothing. Just was just like, this is what these people do. Good for them. Never thought deeply about it. But talking to people in that community who were spiritual, kind of was like, made me interested about it. Like I remember reading this book, I think it was like Eckhart Tolle, like A New Earth. And like, I was walking at Walmart. I think someone had mentioned that book. And then like I was walking at Walmart one time and it was like up on the shelf where like only I could see it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's that book that person was talking about. And I remember reading it and just like, being open to like kind of spiritual stuff, like thinking about it, not like knowing or anything, but just kind of like, is there something to this? Like, is there a God or is there whatever? Like literally never thought about it ever. And then, those people also were like, when I was going through all the horrible stuff, talking to them, and they were like, well, you need to like have more positive. Sometimes they said if you take a vow of abstinence from the things that are bringing like negativity into your life, like you know, the universe will, you know, this and that, blah, 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 those type of conversations. But I remembered, like, after I went to jail, after Belle's dad was using heroin, after my friend committed suicide, like all these things, I remember like sitting in my car one night and like looking up, you know, I worked at afternoons and midnights, but I remember like, or no, it was afternoons at the time, but it was like looking up at the dark sky and be like, okay, universe, like I'm so sick of like all this negativity. Like I'm gonna, you know, take a vow of abstinence from drugs and relationships and you know, all this stuff, that all this negativity is coming from this stuff. So I'm just gonna, you know, and there were people who in that community who are spiritual and sober because of the negativity. So I'm like, I'm gonna try this, like get all this negative stuff out, and maybe there is a God or something. But it was shortly after that I got introduced to you. So I'm like, when I look back at that moment and think, and I think like, I wasn't addressing like the God of the Bible, who I now know is like the one true God, but I was like, my heart was open to something, and God knew that my heart was in the right place to like start learning. Because before that, I was just like shut off. Like I had the atheistic mind view of like, that stuff is stupid. Those people are weak. They need something. Because I was very like strong-headed, strong-willed. Like just as an example, we used to like make fun of, you know, like we would sit in the pews and like turn the names of the songs into dirty meanings and laugh while everyone else was singing. That's what me and my brother were doing. And then me and my brother and like one of my cousins, like, well, I didn't go kidnap baby Jesus. I think it was my brother and my cousin. They kidnapped baby Jesus like out of mangers or something. They must have been detachable. But there was one that they had kidnapped that we totally defaced it, put like, you know, racist things on it. And not that I was even racist. It was just because it was offensive and it was funny to see people react, because why do you care? And then we like hung it from a noose, and like I had it in my car hanging from like my rearview mirror. And it was just funny to me how upset people got about something that's fake. Like, oh my gosh, like people are so upset and it's not even real. So that's just kind of like what I thought. It was just like, not real. Why do you care? Just as an example.
Sure. So you talk about how I started getting really serious when you were pregnant with Danger. How did you take that?
So yeah, not good. Like he started getting real serious. Although there were no negative changes, like there was in him, it was just like, what the heck? Like, you're taking this so seriously. Like, you know, he wanted to go to church every week, and like he wanted to go, you know, to church on Wednesday. And then I started getting, which I see now, it was like probably spiritual, because I had no reason to be so negative, but I was like very negative, like starting to reject like church stuff. And I was like, you're taking this way too seriously. Like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, you know, like you were not this serious about it. Now you're like super serious. Like, and I'm not cool with that. Like, you know, you're like this Jesus freak, like, you know. And then I started like not wanting to go, because I was like, and then I started picking things out, like, oh, they dress all nice like on Sunday, and like I don't fit in, and you know, started all this like thoughts that were probably, you know, spiritual warfare. Really, it was like, oh, you don't fit in with them, you know. But I started believing that. So I was like, I would go on Wednesday when nobody would dress up. It was like dress down day. I would go on Wednesdays, but I wouldn't go on Sunday. And I was like, you can just take the kids. Like, I'm gonna stay here. Like, I only have 2 days off every week. I'm not wasting half of like one of my 2 days off at that place where all these people think they're better than you. Like, I was just like, I'm done with that. So he would go, he's like, okay, bye. You know, he would just leave, he'd go. And I would just stay home. Didn't care. I don't remember what I did, but I was just like, whatever. I don't remember being angry, but I was just like, you do you, boo. I'm gonna do me. And he was fine with it. But as he got closer to the Lord, like he would, you know, I had a obsession with horror movies, and like, you know, I would just be like popping one in at night, or, you know, like to watch. And and he'd be like, oh, it's probably, he wouldn't really say much to me, but he would just like take the kids away from it. Like go play with the kids in the other room and let me do my thing. Because if he brought up anything, it was just like fighting from me. Like, oh, now you think you're better than me. And, you did it. And like, all this stuff. And like, I would say Jesus effing, Christ all the time. And he was just like, babe, can you please not say that? Like, and I was just like, it's a figure of speech, dude. Get over it. Like, why do you think you're so much better than me now? Like, oh, sorry. Like just so rude. So rude. Constantly swearing. Like, I would be at church, like sometimes talking to these little old ladies and like, you drop like several F-bombs in that story. I'm like, really? Like, I don't even notice. Like, I can't stop because I don't notice. Like, but these people at the Beverly Hills church that his parents went to, like, you would have not known that I was like so savage. Like, they never treated me any different. They loved me. Like, these little old ladies loved me. And I knew that they loved me as crazy as I was. Like, that was like, it was just wonderful. Like the acceptance there. Let me see. Oh yeah. I pushed him to anger. Like we'd get in these fights and I would threaten to divorce him. But then I would like think about it and be like, cause I could like cuss him out and be like super ghetto, like at him and just so nasty. And he would just be like, I love you. You're beautiful. I'm praying for you. I'm like, okay, weirdo, like so rude and like nothing but, sometimes like he would get upset, but like the closer he got, it was just like, yeah, just my anger and insults were met with like, I love you. I'm praying for you. So.
Okay. What started changing your heart? When did your heart start changing? Did you see anything that made you think Christianity might not be so bad?
One of the major things was that my sister had been in rehab, which that was a whole other thing. Like I had a lot of guilt because I older people in my family, it was like a rite of passage to introduce substances, at a certain age, like get it from me that I know it's good. I did the same with my sister. I supplied her with substances because I knew, because people could die if they cut them with weird stuff. And I'm like, if you're going to do this, you get it from me. I know that it's good and you're not going to die. But she still could have died. So it doesn't even make any sense, that type of thinking. But, when you're using, it does. So she was in a rehab, and then this lady who worked with addicts would go to the rehab and talk to them about Jesus and talk to them about deliverance, and bring them to her barn. When they got out of rehab, she had this meeting in her barn. And I was just like, why are you going to this lady's barn? Kind of Kool-Aid about to be drinking over there, kind of cult, just thinking that sounds weird. So me and my mom were like, we're about to go to this lady's barn and see what's going on over here. Like, they're not going to, be getting you into some cult. Because it just sounds weird. Like, who meets in a barn? So me and my mom go, and they bring this lady in who had gotten shot in the face. Shout out, Crystal, if you watch this. And they were like, she had gotten shot by a .357 Magnum through the door at a house, like a drug house, and it just blew her face apart. And she survived, but she had these pins holding her face together, and she had just got out of the hospital, still all messed up. The bullet is lodged in the back of her brain, and it bounced around in her brain. So stroke-like features, like weakness on this whole side, face drooping, all the stuff, eye not working, eye just kind of staring over at the corner, that eye. And this lady's like talking to her about like, you need to, confess and repent of your sins and Jesus is going to heal you. And she just like, whatever you can think of, just start talking to the Lord. And this lady just is, pouring her heart out. Like, Lord, I confess my, all this horrible stuff, stuff that she's done, like the drug life. You do bad things, just hand in hand. So she's doing all that and crying. And then she's like, whatever you guys think of, just pray for her. And, this goes on for a while, but then, the lady, Crystal, that they're praying for, she's sitting and we're sitting across the table from her and she sits up and she covers her good eye. And I see this eye that, was over here just like, and she goes, oh my God, I can see. And then she's like, I can see. It's just like, jumping up and crying and everyone's just like, what? And I'm just like, what? And then she's like, yeah, like cause her eye had been like out of her head and then they put it back in. So all the musculature was jacked up. The eye doctor said, I don't know, your eye's there, but it's not working. And then even when she had went back to the eye doctor, they're like, we don't know how you can see. Cause I don't know, we're like, Jesus. But anyways, like her mouth and all that stuff, she had to like use a straw and all this stuff was weak. And she walked with a cane because it was like the stroke stuff. But anyways, like 2 weeks later, I think the meeting was every 2 weeks. We went back because we're like, what's going on here? And then she comes in like skipping around this room, no cane, like saying, God, continue to heal her. And like, tightened up the muscles in her face so she didn't have to use the straw anymore. And she's like, I don't need the cane. I don't need the straw. Like I can see. And she's just like going all crazy. And I was just like, whoa. Like, that's wild. And then, but it was just like, all these like, and then I think like, oh, my best friend whose aunt is like a witch and has like a tarot card store and all this stuff. She calls me one night and she's like, I'm like suicidal. Like, I feel like I want to kill myself. Like she was miserable. And so I'm like, I'm going to take you to that lady's barn. So I take her over there, call her, take her over there, start praying over her. She kind of like falls on the ground, throws up, but then sits back up and she's like, I feel so much peace. Like, I feel like it's gone. Like that feeling is gone. And shout out to Melissa. She has been sober now since then. Like God, so many miracles. Even when she was pregnant, like recently, she had some liver issues that they were saying were bad. We prayed. She went back to the doctor. All her liver numbers went down. The doctor was like, what?
That's right.
Yeah. Like,
that's right. Okay. So, you see some crazy stuff. When did your heart change?
So that started like, that miracle was like, okay, I can't.
Which miracle?
Crystal's eye.
Okay.
Like, and I was just like, I can't rational, I can't do anything with that other than like, I saw heaven with my own eyes. Like, so just like, wow. And at this point, I'm in the medical field. I work in X-ray. I see people messed up and I'm like, that doesn't happen in real life. Like, yeah. What just happened in this lady's face, like in her eye and whatever. So I'm just like, I go to church, I think, and then it was like a Wednesday night service. And I just hear like, the basic message, like God loves you. He just wants a relationship with you. No matter what you've done and where you've been, he just loves you and he just wants a relationship with you. And I started crying. And then I remember like, I think maybe your dad walked by and he was like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And then I think he maybe sent you because then you came in and you're like, what's going on? And I was just like, I don't know. I just heard him talking and I started crying. I had no reason to be crying. And then you were just like, well, like when the creator of the whole universe, when his spirit like connects with our spirit, you just weep. Like as a human, you can't handle it. And then like, and I was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, cause like no reason to just hear him say those words and then just start ugly crying. Like I have no reason to be crying. Why am I crying right now? And then I thought about that. And then there was another point where, your dad like hand out those little tracts, the Bible tracts with like salvation prayer and stuff on them. And I remember there was like one on our computer desk. And at the time, I think I was like sneaking and smoking sometimes. And I remember like hanging out the side door of our rental house, like sneaking and smoking a cigarette. And then I think I looked down and saw like one of those Bible tracts. And I was just like reading it. And I was just like, I am messed up. I do need you. It's like, because it's like there has to be a point, where you just like think like, yeah, I am a sinner. Like, and I do need somebody to help me out because I'm a mess. Like, because even while that time too, like I had quit selling I had quit selling street drugs, but I had been diagnosed with narcolepsy. This thing's gonna be like played into it too, because this is another miracle that happened. When I was going to school for X-ray, I kept falling asleep and writing random stuff on paper, having these like hallucinations where I'd like think I would see things, like driving or whatever, like think I saw an accident, slam on the brakes, nothing there, like crazy stuff. So I had went to like doctors and they did all these tests and said, oh, you have narcolepsy. So this was, had been on medication for narcolepsy for years, like was on it when I met him. But then as I came out of, when I was pregnant with my son, I hid my pregnancy and went to different doctors so I could still get my Adderall and sell it to make money. Because I was like not selling. I didn't want to sell illegal drugs, but I even knew people at work, like tons of people take Adderall. So I was like still selling that because it was like, well, at least it's legal. No one's going to catch me in the locker room at work giving my coworker a few Adderall. Or people if I knew from the party scene would still come and get it because they'd party all weekend and then Adderall would help them get through the work week. So I'd sell all my Adderall. And he was like, you should stop doing that. Like, and I'm like, but we need the money, so.
God will provide.
Yeah, God will provide. He would just say, God this, God that. I'm like, okay, but what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Like you keep saying God, like this concept was just like foreign to me. Like every time he would say anything, I'm like, okay. He'd tell me to pray. And I was just like, okay, I'll go sit in the corner like a crazy person and talk to myself. Like, I was just like so mocking to anything. Like eventually I was just like very mocking. Cause it was just stupid. Like to me, it was stupid until I saw, that stuff happened with that girl. I was like, whoa, like this chick just got like, that doesn't happen. Anyways. Yeah. So like that happened, the thing at church. So then I start like, I'm going to see what the Bible says. Our first year that we were married. So I got baptized, was it 2015? So it was like, or 16. I don't know. It was a couple of years. I have to look it up. But it was a couple of years of like this back and forth. But I start reading the Bible. And another miracle happens because I'm like reading the Bible. I'm like reading it on my lunch break. I'm just like, this is crazy. Like it's talking about orgies and all this crazy stuff. Like it sounds like it was written today. He was like, yeah, it's totally relevant. Like God made it relevant. Like that's why it seems like it is applicable for today. But I'm just like diving in, reading all this stuff. But my sister needed to have surgery because of, side effects of, her using. She had some issue going on that she tried all these natural methods to fix it. Didn't work. Finally went and saw a doctor and they went in with a scope and like, we need to fix this surgically. So I'm like reading in the Bible and I don't even know what like hearing from God is or anything. But I read this verse, it says, these things that I do, you'll do, and even greater because I go to the Father. As I'm reading that, this thought keeps popping in my head, tell your sister to cancel the surgery. I'm like, what? Why do I keep thinking that? But I'm like, well, that other lady got healed. Maybe we'll pray for healing for my sister. So I think I was like texting my sister and I was like, I don't know why I keep thinking this, but I keep thinking that you're supposed to cancel the surgery. And at this point, it's like in the afternoon. And she's like, well, the doctor's office isn't even open anymore, so I'm not going to cancel the surgery, but you guys can come over and like pray for me. We're going to pray for healing. Yeah. So we go over there and I like lay my hand on my sister's, on my sister, and just, we pray for her, go home. And then like the next day we're like sitting around, I'm like waiting to hear from her. And then she finally messages me. She's like, you're not going to believe this. Like they went in to like do the surgery and it's gone. Like a couple weeks ago, my mom was with her and they went in and looked at it like laparoscopically or whatever and was like, this isn't healing. We have to fix it surgically. So this is just like a couple weeks ago that they went in there and they were like, we need to take care of this now. So then they go in to take care of it and it's gone after like a year or maybe even 2 years of her dealing with this issue. So they wake her back up and they're like, there's nothing there. And then she calls me. She's like, yeah, they went in and there's nothing there. So they just woke me back up. I was like, what? And then I remember like telling Jeff's mom and she's like, well, she didn't cancel surgery, but God did. You know, I was like, so cool. Yeah. So then that lit a fire under me to like, all these people around here getting healed. I want to be healed. So I was just like, I want to be healed of narcolepsy. Like at this point, I'm on like 20 milligrams of Adderall 3 times a day, like highest dose you can be on. On top of that, I'm like drinking Monsters, full pots of coffee, I'm working midnights, probably drinking like 2 Monsters, a pot of coffee, and like taking all this Adderall, like out of control. I had such a high tolerance for literally like any drug from my heavy years of like use that was just like nothing. But like I was like, I don't want this. Like, cause when I get older, I can't take this medicine. But my doctor already told me, like, they put you on stimulants basically to keep you awake. But then when you get older, your heart, after years of being on those, it can have an effect on your heart. And then when you get older, you can't handle it. So they end up having to take you off and then just take your driver's license and things like that. And I was like, that's horrible. I don't want that to be my life. So I was like, I want to be healed of that. So yeah, like one night when we were going to bed, like Jeff was like praying for me and he was just like, no, God, if it's your will, like, would you heal Brynn of this? And then like felt something get pulled out of me and just started crying. Didn't know what it was at that time, but I felt it. And it's funny because I had started listening to this prayer show called The Point Live on like Sirius, and people would call in and he would pray for them. And I had heard people say like, oh, I felt something, or I felt this pinching and this things. And I'm like, these people have active imagination. Like, you don't feel anything. But then when I felt that, I was like, it was like I imagine like if like a little suction cup is like stuck to a wall and you unstuck the suction cup. It was like that kind of feeling, this like, like this unsuction thing, and then like something getting pulled out. Like I felt that and I was like, oh, that's not imagination. Like I felt that. And then started crying and didn't know what it meant. But like at the time I worked midnights. So on midnights, I would always like out of just habit, like pack my bag or whatever. And then as I was driving to work, I would my purse would be on the passenger seat. I would just dig through it and make sure I had my badge, my medicine, like all my things. I would always just dig through, like as I was leaving, like just to double check. Couldn't find my medicine, and I was just like, dang it. And then like I hear like, you don't need to take that anymore. I was like, what? And I'm like, is that what that was? Like, did I get healed? Like, so I was like, okay, I work at midnight, so you got to get me through this. So I go to work and I was fine. I mean, I probably drink coffee or whatever, like, because out of habit, not like thinking that I needed it. But then get home the next day and it's up on my pill bottle's like on top of my fridge. I'm like, there it is. I just throw it in my purse. And then the next day when I was like going to work again, same thing, everybody's got their routines, digging through. And I'm like, I know I took it off the fridge and put it in my bag. I know I did, and I'm like, it's definitely not in here. And then I hear that, like, you don't need to take that anymore. I'm like, okay. So then I'm like, I think I made an appointment to like go see my doctor. I was just like, I know you guys say that I like have to take, because like if you're not medication compliant, they can like take your driver's license, like because it's considered like a neurological disease. You have to be medication compliant. I had fallen asleep at red lights. I had fallen asleep at the wheel and flipped a truck down a hill. Like I had lots of things that I told doctors that made them nervous. Like, you have to stay on medication. But I was like, well, I know that, I don't know how you feel about like God or whatever, but like, I feel like I was told that I was healed of this. So like, can we redo the testing or whatever? And the doctor was like, well, it's been quite a few years since you've had testing, so we can get updated testing because that is a thing, So I'm like, okay, let's get updated testing. And so schedule me for all the sleep study and all the stuff. And then when that comes back, it's like, yeah, you don't have narcolepsy, So then he's like trying to like figure out a way to explain it. I'm like, you told me the tests were very sensitive and they don't misdiagnose people, but now now you're trying to figure out what the heck happened. Because I think it was like, I don't know, 8 to 10. I'd been on medication for a long time. So that was pretty wild. After that, it was just like, I think I got baptized shortly after that. Like we had went to like this church camp in the summer and I saw these teenagers getting baptized the year before. And I like wanted to them, but I was like too afraid to like ask someone to do it. But then after that healing, I was like, oh, I definitely need to get baptized. Like, so then that summer I was like, gung ho to ask like, yes, please baptize me. And it was in a lake at this church camp. But then I was like sharing my testimony with everybody at church camp, like that whole, whatever week that we were there, and it was fun. Like, and they asked me to share my testimony, like in front of all the high schoolers. And cause I was just like really fired up. But that really fired me up at that point too. Like then I was like passing out Bibles to like patients in the emergency room. Like I remember this one guy, like I had given him a Bible and then like maybe like a year, I don't know, it was a while later, he came back and he was being seen for something and in the ER and he was like, oh, and he goes, man, he's like, you gave me that Bible. He goes, it's this big, and I've only got about this much through it. He goes, but it just made me realize that I'm not no better than anybody else. I used to think I was better than people. And it made me realize I'm not better than nobody else. He's like, thank you for giving me that. But yeah, just,
I love you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not crying. You're crying. Oh wait, no, that's me. God is good. Thanks for joining us on Everybody Has a Story. This is the story of my wife.